Marissa Gutierrez-Vicario is an artist, curator, educator, and human rights activist whose passions drive her to bring about a force of change from within. She is the executive director of Art and Resistance Through Education, ARTE, an organization that educates young people around human rights change, and an adjunct professor at the City College of New York in the Art Education Department. By educating and empowering young people to use art as a means of social justice and human rights activism, Marissa creates opportunities to connect them to challenge local and global issues. She has traveled to over 50 countries to present workshops and research peacemaking through various fellowships. You may read more about ARTE at www.artejustice.org.
All right. Well, thank you, Marissa, so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I know you're busy, but in a good way. You've got a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah, no, thank you. We all are. But yeah, definitely so much stuff going on all the time.
How was Thailand?
It was great. I think it made me realize a lot of different things. One, and some of them were like, you're like, wow, I didn't have to go all the way to Thailand to realize these things, but I think being in a concentrated place with, I think it was, in total, I think there were 21 different fellows from across the globe. I think it taught me a lot about my own patience and like the scope of like being a peacemaker means. And like, so I left with a lot more questions. I left with a lot more kind of uncertainty in terms of like, what, especially in times right now, I think in the United States, especially where, again, such like human rights abuses are happening with the administration, things like that, and have always been happening. I think figuring out where do I fit in this piece in this time as a peacemaker, but also being the troublemaker, you know what I mean? And I think in a good way, and understanding that like we also need to push ourselves and push others to do the right thing. So it taught me a little bit about that, I think, definitely. I think also just a reminder that of the, like, and this sounds very simple, but I think it's a great reminder in terms of like kindness, in terms of what people are going through. And I think, even peace builders, even people who have been really involved in this work for a long time, I think are coming from a lot of different places, a lot of different backgrounds that I think we have to remind ourselves to like pause and think about where they're coming from, I think. So I think that was a little bit about, and like there's a lot of pain, especially for women of color, people of color. So I think for me also like understanding what it means to stand up for other women of color, I think was something that was important for me. So anyways, that was, and one other thing I guess I'll mention too is it's interesting because I'm talking with you, but the last few days I've been thinking about this quote a lot. So part of the fellowship was to spend a week, 2 different weeks in field studies, if you will, based on like peace, and like one was in Indonesia in the aftermath of the tsunami in 2004, and how people were rebuilding, and especially in a place that was already filled with conflict. And the other place was in the south of Thailand, looking at the fishing industry, and what happens when people are being trafficked or enslaved in those industries. And I remember talking to like a human rights activist and a person who was especially interested in supporting land rights and protecting the land rights of people there. And he said something that was like, he's like, I'm biased. He's like, but I'm always biased on the side of the poor. And I thought that really resonated with me, and was very deep in the sense that like how honest he was, and how like I think for me that's something I strive to do as well. And I'm not quite the activist that he is, and like someone who's really put his life on the line in that way. But I think thinking about like we should be biased on the side of the poor, and we should be biased on the side of those who are oppressed. So that was, even though I was far away from this country, I think it was a time to reflect and think. And at any point did I ever feel like I felt disconnected in the sense of not being in the States, but in everything I did, even though it was from a perspective of Southeast Asian politics, every day I thought about, what it was like to not be in the States, and to see all the stuff that was happening. And to also, to be in a community that like it felt, because we're a group of people from all around the world. But for me, like, at the end of the day, I am from the U.S. and I am, this is something that I've, even though I travel a lot, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what I've up to the next few months, at the core of everything I do is thinking about how I can make my community a better place.
And sometimes it's just about getting that perspective because you're not gonna, when you live and breathe every day where you live, sometimes it just becomes like background noise, or it becomes part of, say, like part of the furniture. Like you're just kind of like
totally.
And sometimes it's just becomes a routine or habit, and like you said, like pulling yourself out, and that's like I always believe that when you put yourself in a different place, even if it's like you say, even if, how long were you away again? If you can remind.
I was gone for 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is still, I mean, even if it's like 2 weeks, or even if it's 3 months or a year, I mean, it's sometimes you have to take yourself out, and you're like, you remember home, but it's a strange feeling. Because when I did the study abroad, I felt the same way. Like I remembered home, and it was like, but at the same time, like, this isn't home. This is where my situation now. But then home looks different when you come back, in a good way sometimes. Or sometimes it's like, you're like, wait, when did this all happen? Like when you came back, like, wait a sec.
Totally. And one of the things I just thought of it, and as you were saying this, is also, it was interesting also to hear. So on my project, everyone had to do some kind of like conflict analysis report, and mine was on the mistreatment of children in jails and incarcerated young people. So I wrote this report. Yeah. So, and a lot of the stuff is something that many people already know, and I think a lot of activists on the ground are already doing this work. But I think it was interesting to hear from an international perspective. A lot of people didn't know about how bad that mass incarceration is. Like some people were like, real, like people had no idea. So I felt, if even I had a chance to be able to talk about that, I think that was really important, because I think oftentimes, and especially like in different countries, thinking about human rights violations in different countries, I think people think that doesn't happen here, and it does, and it's very bad. Like there's things that we can do to make it so much better. So I think very bad, and at least with mass incarceration and like detention, and this is during the period of time where children are being detained at the border. So I think these are. You can't separate yourselves from the things that are happening, and you also have to hold ourselves accountable into because it's my country. We hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm. So you did the Create Activate zine last year. How did it go? And you've had some more since then, right?
Yeah, no, thank you for So we had it last year, and then and you're right, we just finished our second session. So last year was really great. Last year was mostly youth focused, so a lot of them, or it was all youth focused. So we produced a zine with them, and it's online. You can see it artejustice.com/zine. So you can check that out. Really beautiful, and was designed by this wonderful person named Christina Filler, who helped put all the pieces together. And she's also a anti-gun. I was gonna say that. So she has this really tremendous story about her father being a victim of gun violence, and now she's doing things as a graphic designer to educate people on violence and like how to keep violence. So I want to give her a plug. She's amazing, but also she helped with that design. And then for this upcoming design, it was mostly adults, which is great. It was all adults. So I think it was a random, beautiful group of folks that have come from all over the city. A lot of people came from different boroughs to participate. And then it was just a really beautiful discussion on that we're trying to uphold one's rights, I think. So we talked a lot about gentrification, and we talked a lot about people being kicked out of housing, people, school segregation, all those kinds of things. And I think along with creating art, it was a really, really strong discussion among folks who have, especially other folks who have been in the city doing human rights organizing, but haven't had maybe had a chance to even share their power and their work. So it went really, really well, and we're looking for the second installation done by another artist named Laura, who's going to support the group. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see the second edition, and also excited. Oh, one more thing. I'm also excited to share about talking about more about the UPR process, the Universal Periodic Review, and I mean, I could talk about this for a long time, but mostly figuring out ways to keep the U.S. and other countries accountable on the ground. So when human rights violations occur and countries issue reports on what's going on the ground, local stakeholders, civil society, nonprofit organizations can keep governments accountable to and give an accurate portrayal of what's actually happening in the country.
So like the ones by like Amnesty.
Yeah, Amnesty, other local and that's a very well known organization, and also local community organizations as well. So that's exactly it.
Okay, great. And you have the Visions of Justice award ceremony.
Thank you for asking about that. No, yes, we do. And I'm super excited. It's on February 29th, 2020. So we each year, we're very grassroots. So each year we have a fundraiser to support our work on the ground. And we've noticed that in all of our work, across, in jails, in community centers, at schools, we always focus on women of color artists and artivists, and those who are bringing attention to human rights issues. So we thought it was important this year to obviously amplify our work and share it with other people, but also honor the legacy of a woman of color, specifically in New York, because we're based in New York, but someone who has used their especially visual art to address human rights issues in their community. So we actually tomorrow is we're gonna it will be the last day for people to submit nominations, but we wanted it to be a very grassroots, very, people who are doing incredible artwork, but maybe don't get the recognition they deserve. Mm-hmm. So, so the idea is it's a fundraiser, but it's also an award. And on the 29th, it's going to be, a celebration of their work, a celebration of our work. Have DJ Sabine, house DJ, is going to be there. And
I was actually looking, that's like one of your board members, right? Isn't it?
She's one of our advisor board members. She's always been supportive of artists since the very beginning, and she's very famous in the house scene. So she always volunteers her time to support us. So it's really cool.
And it's nice. It's like a nice night out too. Like everyone gets to relax. It's not like sometimes like you said, you're hustling to get like the work done, and like you said, it could get overwhelming.
Yes,
it's nice to sometimes you're still doing something very important, and like you said, you're fundraising, but it's in a not casual, but you know what I mean.
No,
it's hearted evening, and
no, I think sometimes. Well, and that's the beauty of working with a human rights arts organization is at the end of the day, I mean, everything we do is thinking about human rights and thinking about social justice, thinking about inequity, but also I think there's a value to being joyful and celebration, and I think the arts allows us to be mindful of that, even in the most dire situations that people have experienced in this world. I think everyone has the ability to create art, to enjoy art, to feel fulfilled in their life. So I think, definitely, people dance in the face of injustice. People should do it.
And you have the next opportunity coming up to go abroad.
Yeah, thank you.
You're like, I got a lot to prepare for it. So please. What is it? I gotta know.
Yeah. No, did I explain anything to you? Or
no,
do you know
that? You just said you're going away.
I'm going away.
I was like, where? And
yeah, no, I'm excited. And it's hard. Again, I feel like I had just come back, but I realized this is a really special opportunity. I will be serving as a visiting chair at the School of Public Policy at Central European University in Budapest. And I'll be leading a class basically on our work on artes pedagogy on the intersection of human rights and art, but for graduate students studying public policy at the university. So I'm super excited, and I'll be there for 3 months. And I've never been to Budapest. I'm super interested. The university is going through a really interesting transition itself. They're actually physically moving the university. I'll be like the last chair in Budapest before they move. So it's a very interesting time to be there. And they're really so far in my interactions with the university, they've been very supportive, and also, alongside the class, I'll be able to do some public lectures and basically talk about the stuff that we do on the ground with Arte. So I'm super excited.
And then Budapest itself has a lot of, history with, human rights injustices and minority rights and
totally
or what you call Roma rights.
Roma rights, yeah.
So that would be also interesting to just dabble in and see what's going on. And
totally, yeah. So I'm super excited. We'll see what happens, and I think it's also interesting to like you said, the city itself has a very rich history and a lot of I think it's a good place. I also think in terms of reflection about the city, but also the region, and then also I think the most important for me is like, you know, thinking about how to make the connections with students. I think it's a very Central European. I think is known for a very diverse group of people from around the world. So thinking also, I don't want to just be U.S. focused because, but I do want to at least help give them a sense of the work that I do and like, you know, why we do the work we do, and also I think making connections between the work that we have in my own community and using the arts and using that as a way for them to kind of rethink about what's also happening in their own community, especially if they're thinking about public policy. And I think sometimes we often think public policy is just a very you know, it's devoid of imagination or creativity, but I think oftentimes the best policy comes when it's in that space of creativity and imagination and an actual figuring out ways to get many different voices involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for giving me a little taste of your world for the last year and what's coming up. And I'm super stoked that you're going to be able to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Visiting professor role abroad. Yeah. And anything else coming up that you got to share with us?
Coming up? No, I think yeah, we'll see what 2020 brings. I think those are the main things going on right now. Yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to do a little bit more writing and things like that. I think that's really important. And still working again. I think it's important to still like think about and work with in mass incarceration, and also thinking about detention and how these two are interlinked. Those are kind of the things I've been focusing on and will continue to focus on. So, and I'm also grateful again to have this time away again.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for giving us a little taste of everything. I wish you luck, and
thank you so much.
And yeah, I really do appreciate you checking in with me and everybody in the world, because you do is really good work. Yeah. You know that, but yes.
And thank you for doing this, and for yeah, it makes me feel very special and honored. So thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you so much.